Hey, I'm Amelia,
And I'm Steve.
and this is the Vibe Van. Dave and Matt Vans asked us to share some of the best tips for keeping plants healthy and happy while on the road.
In this video, we'll be talking about common methods of plant maintenance that people worry about. We'll be talking about how to keep plants the right temperature and make sure that plants get the right amount of sunlight. And we'll talk about keeping plants secure while driving.
People, including us, when we started thinking about bringing plants on the road, often worry about plants getting too hot in the van. One way we've overcome this is by making sure we're not too hot in the van. So usually when we're parked at a campsite, we'll take the plants out of the van and put them on our picnic table to kind of air them out. Another thing you should think about is when you're driving, you're keeping the plants in a place that's stable so they're not tipping over. So we've put them in little nooks throughout our van, whether it's a pot that we've hung on the wall or even on our bookshelf. We kind of structured the books in a way that they would keep the plant pot that we have tight so it wouldn't fall over and fall out onto the floor. Our sink is also a really good place to keep plants. We have a cutting board that covers it, and so like plants that we're propagating, the ones that fell out onto the floor, I decided to put them in like a Tupperware, and they fit perfectly in the sink. So while it's not aesthetic while we're driving, it really doesn't need to be, because once we're parked, that's when we get camp ready. That's when we feel like we can relax. So as long as the plants are happy, just as we have our seatbelts on, they're sitting in the sink or in the pot or on the bookshelf, they'll be happy. We have some practical experience of what not to do when you're transporting your plants. So this summer, before we headed out on the road, I thought it might be a good idea to propagate some plants in one of the pots that we have on our wall. And so I put a little bit of water and then put the plants in there. And the first 15 minutes we were driving, they just fell out and water was all over the wall. And so I would not recommend having water loosely, I guess, in your van, or plants loose in your van.
Maybe more than worrying about temperature, sunlight is a big concern. We frequently are putting our plants out on the dashboard as we're driving, or pulling them out onto picnic tables as we are setting up camp. For the most part, we try to use or keep low light level plants in the van. But sometimes we, want to bring a plant that requires a little bit more light. Maybe it's struggling a bit, and the issue doesn't seem to be water. We just want to make sure that our plants have the right amount of light.
So when we first put plants in the van, we thought about the versatility. We live part-time on the road in the summers, and then for the rest of the year, we are in an apartment. So we wanted to make sure that the plants that we brought inside the van could also come out of the van during the other part of the year. So we typically bring plants that are already potted in little plastic planters that we can just slip into the pots that we have mounted on our wall, or plants that will just sit in the sink and can come into our apartment when we aren't living in the van. So this also helps keep this in mind. We've kept this in mind when we're buying the size of the plant.
The kind of plants we bring along in the van are generally smaller plants that can fit into the containers we have mounted on our walls. And we also like to use the time to propagate clippings from the plants we keep at home.
So that includes pothos, succulents, and then these are typically lower light, lower maintenance plants. So they usually say on the tag when you're buying them what type of sunlight they need.
If you have any questions, please reach out to us on Instagram at The Vibe Van.
And we hope you and your plants have a happy time on the road.